And here's the truth. Israel seeks peace. Israel yearns for peace. Israel has made peace and will make peace again.
Wow. I'm dumbfounded by that emphatic statement. It is shocking the lengths to which Israeli leaders these days go to make statements that are just self-evidently untrue. And we're going to unpack a lot of that in this episode throughout today. But I really wanted to start with that one off the front, because that is the mentality that Israel is throwing out. And of course, like nearly every one of the leaders, I would actually say every one of the leaders, when they talk on the UN stage, and obviously there's several hundred, I think, not several hundred, but quite a large number over the several days of this UN General Assembly. Most of it's designed for their domestic audiences, but also a good chunk is designed for the larger audience. And Israel has been very, very effective at conveying a mentality and an idea and a vision for the reality as they see it. And when you're going to see most of the rest of the clips, because this episode is going to look at what the Israeli leader said and what he is continuing to say is their objective and what they're doing. Then we're going to talk about some of what's on the ground as well. And you'll see there is a radical disconnect between the words that are used and the realities on the ground. And that is, it's just breathtaking, the gap. It's one of the largest I've ever seen. And we've seen a lot in the United States about various politicians or leaders saying one thing and something different on the ground. Just see some of my work on Afghanistan if you want any examples. But this is just a whole new category here, because what we've seen, in fact, is the opposite of seeking peace. Right now, I'm going to throw up this map here. This is recent from the Institute for the Study of War, which, as I always say, is great with maps, terrible with analysis. But you do see here on this, all these little dots, they may be small for you to see on your screen, but all these little dots and circles represent where Israel has bombed. Since going back to this, I guess last week or so, with the pager and the walkie-talkie attacks that happened, where they killed scores of people and then wounded thousands of others. Then there was some assassination attacks in Beirut about the Hamas senior leaders, and now then there's been this extraordinarily saturated air campaign. And shortly after that, there's going to be a ground campaign, because the Israeli chief of staff, the general in charge of their forces, yesterday, or maybe it was the day before yesterday, told his troops on camera in public that your boots will be on enemy ground. They've been conducting multiple operations, multiple exercises in the terrain, similar to what they're going to endure in the Lebanese area. And now then they're massing troops up on the border. And every indication is that very soon they're going to go in. They have set as a goal to push back, their words, the Hezbollah fighters from the border. Some of the leaders have said that they're going to push them back to the Litani River, about 25 kilometers across the entire country of Lebanon, which is an extraordinary military task. We very, very difficult, time-consuming, very bloody for both sides. But that is what Israel is in the process of doing. So when you hear Benjamin Netanyahu say that we are all about peace, let the ground do the talking for him in terms of...
The goal is very clear: to safely return the residents of the North. To achieve that, we are preparing the process of maneuvering, which means your military boots, your maneuvering boots, will enter enemy territory.
Is there any doubts about what that means? Now, for those who may be saying, well, we're trying diplomacy. They're trying diplomacy right now so that they can prevent that. Well, let me define diplomacy as it comes from the Israeli side. Again, I don't care about words that come out of their mouth, but about the realities on the ground. And what they're asking for is the complete surrender and subjugation of the Hezbollah side, of really all sides. As long as everyone stops what they're doing and willingly moves that 25 kilometers south and vacates all the area south of the Litani River, and no one shoots us, then everything will be fine. Problem is, this is important. The reason why Hezbollah has been doing this since the 8th of October, one day after the 7th of October, it's in direct response to what Israel has been doing to the Palestinian people in reprisal for what happened there. Now, You could argue and just debate whether you think that that's right or not, or whether they think they could. Obviously, a lot of that depends on your perspective and your point of view and where you enter the argument from. But that is the stated objective, i.e., Hezbollah was not attacking Israel prior to that, prior to October 7th or to October 8th. And they have no interest in doing anything beyond that. But they say, as long as you continue, Israel, with this attack and this destruction of the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, we are going to continue to do this. And they have expressly said on many occasions, to include just recently, just in the last 24 or 48 hours, that if you stop and go a ceasefire in Gaza, so will we. We will go a ceasefire too. They're directly coordinated link. Ergo, if you wanted a diplomatic settlement, one exists, one that you could have, one that the United States has been trying desperately for all these months, trying to say, hey, let's have a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire, we keep saying, in the Gaza Strip. That would solve so many problems, and then actually give the space for a political discussion and a negotiated settlement over time that would have a chance, anyway, of maintaining some kind of stability and stop the killing. But Israel hasn't even attempted any of those things. Instead, they continue waging war. Now, we're going to move from him saying we're all about peace to him now saying that he's all about winning the war.
Far from being lambs led to the slaughter, Israel's soldiers have fought back with incredible courage and with heroic sacrifice. And I have another message for this assembly and for the world outside this hall. We are winning.
Yeah. Are you winning, though? Here's the Israeli press just a few days ago on that issue in Hamas. Gary, you can throw that up there. After months of bragging, Israel finally admits its failure in defeating Hamas. Now, I don't know what they're talking about the admitting. I haven't actually seen that, but I don't need anyone to admit it. I can just look at a map. I can just look at the ground and see that the disparity between the Israeli Defense Forces and the Hamas fighters was something close to the disparity between the United States and NATO and the Taliban. You see where this is going, right? 20 years later, we finally admitted defeat and left. A similar dynamic took place in Israel when they had occupied southern Lebanon from 1982 to the year 2000 and then left. Or the 2006 war when they went in and then 34 days later they left, because you cannot kill your way to a victory here. You just can't do it in these terms without literally wiping out the population. And certainly there's been scores of thousands of casualties in the Hamas fight so far. And now then the numbers are building up in the many hundreds of deaths so far since this current, basically you can now call this the third Lebanese war. And that's actually a few days ago. The last number I saw was well over 700 killed. And I'm sure that number is going to continue to rise because the airstrikes have not stopped. They're continuing on. The ground incursion hasn't even begun. But that's the thought that you're going to destroy Hamas, which was the original statement. And then Netanyahu just flat out lied that we're winning. On what criteria? If the criteria is we're killing more of them than they're killing of us, then wow, off the charts. Yeah, so you're succeeding because it's somewhere around 40,000+ dead on the Palestinian side. And I think the last number I saw was around 700 Israeli soldiers had been killed throughout the war. So yeah, in that grade, it's 40-50 to 1 in your favor. But is the war over? Is Israel safe? Have you destroyed Hamas? And of course, the answer is no. Self-evidently, it's no. And as I keep trying to explain to audiences, you can't kill an idea. You have to look at, why did Hamas rise in the first place? Because it's a thought, it's an idea, and it's over decades of repression of the Palestinian people. And I've showed you this on recent shows here, but in the summer prior to October 7th of last year, 2023, there were huge amounts of violence in the Palestinian areas in both the Gaza and the West Bank. Over 200 Palestinians had been killed by the Israeli Defense Forces and settlers. There was extraordinary amount of suppression and repression and violence against the Palestinian people. And of course, anytime you use violence against one, you're going to get it back. And so many of the Israelis were killed as well. But it was like a boiling cauldron that exploded on October 7th to terrible results for the Israeli people, especially the civilians. It was a terrible thing. And there's no asterisk or caveat for that. It was a terrible thing by itself. But it wasn't by itself. And when you're talking about trying to win a war, and the reason for the rise of the militant wing of Hamas was because of the repression that Israel had been putting on them for all of these decades, and it finally blew up. And now then you have used violence just in orders of magnitude off the charts, and you think that you're going to win then? Now listen, it's important to point out here, winning, as defined by Netanyahu originally, was to bring peace to the people of Israel. That can be done by one of two ways. It can be done by either eliminating and wiping out all of the people, not just the militant wing of Hamas, but you have to wipe out all of the people or get them out of the country, because as long as they stay there without hope, without freedom, and without a path to someday having the ability to live in peace themselves, nobody in Israel will live in peace. That's just a fact, not an opinion, folks. As long as both Israeli and Palestinian people don't both have a possibility of living in peace, nobody will. You can't kill your way to that. And of course, if Israel literally tries to physically kill everybody, then even for the Western world, that's a bridge too far. No one's going to allow that. So then that leaves the second way of some kind of a negotiation and a compromise to where both sides get something they want and they learn to live together. Now, the damage that's been done over those decades, and definitely over the last 11 months, has been profound. And it will take generations, plural, of time and of people to have a chance for that, that aspiration in the distant future to where they could live in peace. But it is possible to at least live in stability as long as you're working towards an outcome that can legitimately be seen as peace on the other side of that equation. And so far, there hasn't been any. So when Netanyahu says that they are winning, he's lying, or he is incredibly delusional. There's only one of two choices, because there is no truth in it. That is a fact. But then the next is here, he's going to say, hey, it's not enough to go after Hamas. It's not enough to go after Hezbollah. We have a bigger enemy. Watch this.
Across this bridge, we will lay rail lines, energy pipelines, fiber optic cables, and this will serve the betterment of 2 billion people. Now look at this second map. It's a map. Look at the second map. It's a map of a curse. It's a map of an arc of terror that Iran has created and imposed from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean.
So the man who seeks peace, emphatically in that opening there, is now desperately trying to draw both the United States and the Western world into a much larger region-wide war. If you're confused on this point, or if you're just pro-Israel and you're blind to everything else, you might want to go to another channel here, because I'm going to show you the truth. And the truth is, Netanyahu, the person, and certainly a lot of the people he represents, wants a war. He does not want peace. He does not want a negotiated settlement. That should be self-evidently true, since he has declined any possibility for negotiations that has anything to do with a future Palestinian ability to have a state or even freedom of any sort. That's self-evident. But now then you see with his map, he loves maps, he's showing you that he wants more war against Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran and Syria, as he blackened them all in into this arc of terror. And we need to go after them. We've appeased them. I keep seeing that used recently as well. He wants to draw the United States into a war, because there is no chance, no matter how strong Israel is in the region, it does not have the military capacity, it does not have the industrial capacity or the manpower to be able to fight and defeat Hamas, fight and defeat Hezbollah, fight and defeat Iran. It physically doesn't have it, not anywhere close. The only way that gets done is if he draws the United States, and probably also Great Britain, into a war. That's what he's trying to do. And you need any more proof of that? Do this mental process here with me. Let's say that Russia, yeah, they're another bad guy. Let's say that Russia chose to attack and destroy the Ukrainian embassy in Poland, let's say, or Romania, just destroyed it, sent one of their Kinzhal missiles and just wiped it out. Or on one of these trips where he assassinated the leader of their military when they went to the West, or to the Ramstein meeting that we have every day, the Minister of Defense, they assassinated him in there. Or in the United States, that at the next presidential inauguration, that Iran, we'll go back to that boogeyman, they assassinate somebody by sending a missile into Washington, D.C. and killing one of the dignitaries that we invited into that situation. We'll say they even assassinated an Israeli leader that we invited in. What do you think the United States would do in any of those cases? We would go crazy. We would lose our minds. And we would take immediate countermeasures against that. We would never stand for that. I mean, we would be outraged to the highest order. Anyone who's listening to this video, do that mental construct and tell me honestly, what would you do if any of those things happened? Those are all hypothetical. They didn't happen. But they did happen from the Israeli side against Iran. So the person that we're saying is the big evil boogeyman has had its embassy destroyed in another country, has had its someone assassinated in its capital city during an inauguration, has had multiple of its leaders assassinated in various other countries, and all of the things that keep going on. There's many more that have happened here, and these are just over the last several months. Lots of things have happened worse before that, and Iran has not done almost anything in retaliation, very small. That in April, they took some action, which was choreographed with the United States, by the way, to make sure that they were able to shoot down all of the drones and the missiles that came, and there was only a single round because they didn't want a larger war. But you have Netanyahu there telling all the world that it's this evil up here that's trying to cause all this disruption, rather than the one who actually does death and destruction on this. You see, he is doing, these are the most in-your-face kind of provocative things you can imagine. Destroying an embassy, for God's sake. That violates every norm that's existed for centuries. You just don't do that. That's just an accepted norm that even people like Hitler didn't violate that. And then assassinating someone in the capital city during an inauguration, again, an in-your-face kind of deal. They are trying to draw Iran out. They want Iran to take action so that then they can claim to be the victim, and then they can say, here's our justification, and now I need you, America, to come join with me and to fight a war. No. It is not America's place to do that. It is not America's interest to do that. We should not fight a war. We should not enable you to go and fight a war of conquest because you don't like your enemies. Listen, folks, it is self-evidently true that Israel has chosen this moment and the sparking event of October 7th to say we're finally going to get rid of our Palestinian problem, our Hezbollah problem, and our Iranian problem. And we're going to wipe the whole thing out. And all we need is America to do everything they can to block the diplomatic problems of other countries around the world, to condemn us and give us all the ammunition and weapons, and then subsequently to actually fight for us in these fights, because that's what this is all about. That's just the cold hard truth. Moving on. Then I want to see what he said about the Hamas. I talked about, if there's no future and no hope for the Palestinian people, then there's not going to be any peace for Israel. Well, Netanyahu's going to make sure he's going to ruin that one by this.
For those who say, well, Hamas has to stay, it has to be part of a post-war Gaza, imagine in a post-war situation in World War II, imagine allowing the defeated Nazis in 1945 to rebuild Germany. It's inconceivable. It's ridiculous. It didn't happen then. It's not going to happen now.
Okay, yeah. Let's compare Hamas that has homemade rockets and AK-47s with the Wehrmacht, with the German Nazi war machine that ravaged large parts of the world, conquered most of Europe, and then that army was defeated at the end. Yeah, let's compare that to Hamas, who had a terrorist event on one big day. Not to minimize what happened, especially to every family in Israel that suffered that, but to equate those two is pathetic. It's just not even rational at all. But even if you say, all right, well, the political entity of that's one thing. But here's the thing: because of your actions, you have radicalized the entire population. And I'm talking Palestinian in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. Absolutely, totally radicalized the entire population. How would it be any different once you have literally wiped out their entire civilian infrastructure? There is nothing that exists there. There is no industry, no jobs, no anything. They are literally living 100% within the Palestinian enclave, the Gaza Strip, of being dependent on foreign aid for every single meal. So you've radicalized them in a small. So sure, take the word Hamas off the table. Say the people who were in the political areas off the table. No problem. What are you going to put in its place? See, that's the real question here. And actually, let me just jump to the next one here, Gary, because then he's going to say what actually is his vision to what he wants to do with the not Hamas population.
Israel will reject any role for Hamas in a post-war Gaza. We don't seek to resettle Gaza. What we seek is a demilitarized and de-radicalized Gaza. Only then can we ensure that this round of fighting will be the last round of fighting. We are ready to work with regional and other partners to support a local civilian administration in Gaza committed to peaceful coexistence.
Let me define that one for you. Let me tell you what that means in practice. He wants that everything that had built that big cauldron of violence to explode on October 7th of last year, he just wants that to go away. And so he wants to, the words he used were demilitarize and de-radicalize, which he means he wants a population that exists to be sheep and passive, and to allow Israel to do whatever they want, to allow the settlers to continue occupying new additional territories necessary. He wants these strips of land, these buffer zones, to be carved into the ground there, like a couple of kilometers, I think, around, to squeeze them in even further. And he wants everybody to be okay with it. And as long as the population will turn into passive people that will do whatever they're told and will never complain, that's what he's looking for. That doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in Israel. Certainly doesn't exist in the United States. That doesn't exist anywhere on the planet, because human beings are human beings, just regardless of what country they come from or what their culture is. They're at the core all generally the same spirit and heart. Everybody deserves peace. Everybody deserves freedom. Everybody deserves the desire to live without worrying about being killed. And when they don't have those things, then they take action to get them. Nobody is just going to be passive in this regard. And I get why Netanyahu thinks that and why he wants that, because he doesn't want to give up anything. He doesn't want to give away anything. He wants to have everything to his standard, and he either wants all of them gone or he wants them turned into sheep. And it's one thing for him to articulate that aspiration, but there's no connection to reality there. And listen, that's why I keep going back to this theme again. If you're pro-Israel, you should be alarmed by these kinds of statements. You should say, this guy's got to go, Netanyahu, because he is guaranteeing more violence against the people of Israel. This is not going to end any war. It's only going to engender more and more hatred for Israel and give more and more motivation to people, not just within the Gaza Strip or the West Bank or now in the Lebanon, but more people around the world, in the region especially, to have additional enmity for the state of Israel, because they see them just obliterating everyone who's weaker than themselves with military force, and it won't work. So why would anybody who loves the state of Israel, and I count myself in that category, I do. I have historically done so, because I want the people of every state and every nation around the world and all people groups to have a chance to live in peace without worrying about somebody blowing them up. So yes, I do care about the people of Israel a lot. And that's why I do not care about Benjamin Netanyahu, because he is leading his country into future violence where they won't always be on the top militarily like they are now. Things change in world history if you haven't paid a lot of attention. And when the tables turn, and it's just inevitable that they will, then there is going to be a reckoning, and it's going to be bad. People don't forget, but they're not going to, no one's going to just de-radicalize and demilitarize and just say, okay, it's cool. If I don't ever have freedom, if I don't have any peace, if I don't have a future hope, that's cool. We'll just stay there and exist. It's never going to happen. So you are guaranteeing perpetual violence, or you are going to have to solve that by doing the unthinkable and actually conducting a physical genocide where you will wipe out the population or physically shove them out of the territory. And that has its own consequences, which will not go unanswered. So Netanyahu is not bringing peace to his country. He is not winning. He is building up future violence and insecurity for Israel. Now, let's shift on to specifically about the Hezbollah situation in Lebanon, because that's the next thing he touched on, which needs to be addressed as well.
They put a missile in every kitchen, a rocket in every garage. I said to the people of Lebanon this week, get out of the death trap that Hezbollah has put you in. Don't let Nasrallah drag Lebanon into the abyss. We're not at war with you. We're at war with Hezbollah, which has hijacked your country and threatens to destroy ours. As long as Hezbollah chooses the path of war, Israel has no choice, and Israel has every right to remove this threat and return our citizens to their homes safely. And that's exactly what we're doing.
Okay, as long as Hezbollah chooses the path of war. Now, let's see again, why did this conflict begin? Did it begin because Hezbollah attacked Israel and just started bombing them and maybe invading their country? Or did it start when Israel started attacking into the Palestinian areas of the Gaza Strip after the results of 10/7, and then in sympathy to their co-religionists and their people, their fellow Arabs, they started sending missiles into Israel? That, of course, is what it was. This is expressly and again exclusively tied together to Israel's attack against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. That's where this is all about. Now, look at the next level of it. Who's got a powerful air force and who has a modern technology of mechanized warfare on the ground forces? It's Israel. Has Lebanon, has Hezbollah attacked into Israel? Of course they have not. Hezbollah does not want war. Lebanese government does not want war. They have expressly said this. They only want to defend their people. And now that they're saying, we're not going to stop shooting these missiles and rockets into Israel until you stop shooting missiles and rockets into the Palestinian areas of Gaza. So if you want peace, it's there to be had. There's a diplomatic path. Israel doesn't want to do it. They don't even want to try it. But now then you see, if you can put that map back up again, I mean, you see the casualties already that are going on, that are being suffered by the Lebanese side there. I mean, these are just nonstop airstrikes continue to go in. They're pummeling them from the north to the south. Continual assassination strikes in Beirut, the capital city, with no regard to any kind of international law at all or any concern about anything. It was so perverse and ironic when everybody in the West and certainly in Israel was with indignation when there was a single missile that was fired into Tel Aviv, which was shot down. But how crazy they were going about that when they don't even think twice about the routine assassinations in the Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, on a regular basis by the Israeli side. And then, of course, all these hundreds upon hundreds of strikes, even in a single day, that Israel keeps doing against them. So who is it that's being attacked? Obviously, if you're talking about international law, I think it's self-evident what the truth is to that. And listen, here's the bottom line. Israel is bent on military conquest, and they're going to continue going forward with it until they're stopped. And here's the military truth, just giving you a bit of military analysis here toward the end. There is no military solution here. They have not been able to, in nearly a year now, been able to defeat what they're calling Hamas, but now it's any radicalized person, because as soon as you kill one Hamas person, there's 2 or 3 other men ready to pick up their rifle and keep going, because there is no distinguish. Israel's not distinguishing who they're killing. They're killing anyone. So they're making the entire population their enemy. Ergo, they will never destroy the military arm, regardless of the title you want to put on it on any day. That's the first area. The Lebanese area is even worse. It's a much, much more difficult military task than what they have been unable to accomplish in the constrained Gaza Strip. So if Israel goes in on the ground, and I see no reason to think they won't, they're going to find that it is nowhere near as good as and effective as they think for the IDF. In fact, I think they're going to end up just pissing away their strength and getting a lot of their people killed. And at the end of the day, they'll probably go some distance and accomplish some amount of success, and certainly substantial destruction and death will be visited upon the people of Lebanon. And then they'll probably return like they've done before, because they can't stay there. They don't have the manpower to drive that far away. And of course, what some of our previous episodes, I won't go into it again, but there's significant economic problems for Israel that this war will greatly exacerbate. And they just can't sustain this for the long time. The only way that this continues to go on is if they succeed in drawing the Americans into it. And I just have to hope and pray that we're not stupid, and that we're aware of how we're being manipulated, and how naked is the attempt by Israel to use a lot of words to make it sound like we should go fight with them, even though any kind of basic examination of the realities on the ground show that they're just trying to bait us in there. I hope that they won't succeed, because I hope we'll be smarter than that. But we'll have to see how that goes on there. But I just thought it was important that you knew the truth behind what Netanyahu was saying here. So that's our show for you today. Thanks for being with us here. We're going to look at another diplomatic issue here that's also going on simultaneous with this, also at the United Nations, and that is Zelensky and his diplomatic fail. We're going to have Colonel Jacques Beau back with us again today. He's going to be talking about a lot of things that are going on both diplomatically and militarily. Do not want to miss that. That's at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next episode of Daniel Davis Deep Dive.